There we go. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with the third step prayer there, Rob, please.
And you'll find, hi everybody, my name is Rob K. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and you'll find the third step prayer on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
All right. We are on page 113 today, and about a third of the way down, we're actually in the middle of describing the different types of partners. In this case, they're obviously talking about husbands, but as you know, it could be a husband, a wife, a better half, a partner, etc. So we'll go ahead and start at number 3.
Hey, if on page 113, everybody, if you have a number 3 husband, you may be in luck. Being certain he wants to stop, you can go to him with this volume as joyfully as though you had struck oil. He may not share your enthusiasm, but he is practically sure to read the book, and he may go for the program at once. If he does not, you will probably not have long to wait. Again, you should not crowd him. Let him decide for himself. Cheerfully see him through more sprees. Talk about his condition or this book only when it raises the issue. In some cases, it may be better to let someone outside the family present the book. They can urge action without arousing hostility. If your husband is otherwise a normal individual, your chances are good at this stage.
Yeah, we're talking about somebody that is obviously had consequences mount and has been experiencing the negative results of those consequences and is basically well, hopefully at the end of a spree is feeling some remorse and is ready to actually do something about their drinking. And that's kind of this part here. Now, I would say that it takes a very strong individual to be enthusiastic at this point in time. The coming at it cheerfully and seeing him through more sprees, I think is probably a little bit of a challenge. But that's again what we're trying to do. We're trying to present a positive approach. We're trying to look at this as a good thing, not something that should be a negative, and that is tough. This is a person. The alcoholic is a person that wants to stop but cannot, and are at that point in time where they are grasping at whatever they can, and hopefully they grasp this book and start to read it and start to find people that have recovered using this program and are learning as much as they can when they can. But again, there is an important ingredient here, and that is your positiveness as the person trying to help is an important ingredient in the approach of this person. Rob?
Yeah, and if you have a number 3 husband, now we talked about the different numbers last week. Remember, type 1 is a heavy drinker. Type 2 is lack of control. Type 3 wants to stop but can't. And number 4 has medical problems. Okay. So here, number 3, you may be in luck. Why are you, will you may be in luck? It's because he wants to stop and he's not sure how to do it. So now he's looking for other ways of doing things. So therefore, they're looking for other options. See, a lot of people think that they can control and enjoy their drinking, but we realize that we can't. Remember on page 30, it was we had to fully concede. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. Until we do that, that's just step one. Okay, we have to admit to ourselves. This person right now is at that point. They want to stop, but they don't know how. So they're looking for outside ways of doing it. Remember, Bill tried quitting drinking on his own willpower. fear, neither one worked. You know, here he goes to Towns Hospital, spends money that he doesn't have, you know, trying to get better. Comes out, thinks fear will straighten him out. Doesn't work. Okay. Thinks that, when he hears that he might be locked up for alcoholic insanity, fear doesn't do any good for him. Okay. Now they're looking for another way of doing it. Remember, cheerfully see him through more sprees. On page 35, Jim. Okay. Bill went to see him 6 times. Okay, after each spree, and then the guy Jim ended up in the hospital. They went to see him. Okay, they planted the seed. We don't know when it's going to take root. It could take a while, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it will materialize. Okay, so remember, they didn't give up on Jim, so we don't give up on people. Also, and here's a big point, is that Bill did not give up on Dr. Bob. Remember, Bill was working with Dr. Bob in Akron, Ohio, after his business deal went south. Dr. Bob went to Atlantic City for his medical convention and got drunk. They found him a few days later at, I believe it was his nurse's house. Bill didn't give up on Dr. Bob. Okay, got him sober, and they started the process over again. So we don't give up on people. Okay, so please, just because a sponsee goes back out again, don't give up on them. Okay, we plant the seed. Okay, we hope it takes root. It doesn't always take root right now. Okay, we're at the bottom of page 113, everybody. You would suppose that men in the 4th classification would be quite hopeless. Now remember, the 4th class, they have medical problems. Okay, but that is not so. Many of Alcoholics Anonymous were like that. Everybody had given them up. Defeat seemed certain, yet often such men had spectacular and powerful recoveries.
Yeah, so this is a person that's got medical problems, that has basically given up all hope, that doesn't think that there's anything that's going to work. They are what we might consider at their rock bottom. Some folks might say at this point in time, this is where you can really again coming at it from a positive approach and working with them, basically taking them step by step, minute by minute in some cases, and then hour by hour, and then day by day, etc. You can actually get this person back on their feet, get them sober, and once they start to experience the success that they can have with that, they can begin to really kind of dig in, learn as much as they can, and begin to have that spiritual experience that we're looking for. So it is very likely that the person that has given up and is basically saying that there's no way that they can quit, there's nothing they can do. It's usually there are cases where this is at that point where they are best suited to actually stop drinking and recover. So it's very dependent upon the individual and as well as the approach. And again, we try to do this from a positive approach and hopefully get a hold of them, get them, like I said, minute by minute, then hour by hour, and then from that day by day, and it just builds on that. Rob?
Yep, top of page 114, everybody. There are exceptions. Some men have been so impaired by alcohol that they cannot stop. Sometimes there are cases where alcoholism is complicated by other disorders. A good doctor or psychiatrist can tell you whether these complications are serious. In any event, try to have your husband read this book. His reaction may be one of enthusiasm. If he is already committed to an institution, you can convince you and your doctor that he means business. Give him a chance to try our method. Unless the doctor thinks his mental condition too abnormal or dangerous. We make this recommendation with some confidence. For years, we've been working with alcoholics committed to institutions. Since this book was first published, AA has released thousands of alcoholics from asylums and hospitals of every kind. The majority have never returned. The power of God goes deep.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. One, we are talking about people that are institutionalized that would be in what we might consider long-term rehab, if not at least a 30-day program for rehabilitation. And one that is very far gone, has probably lost a lot. They probably have lost their job. They may have lost their family. They may have lost, things like their house, other, tangible items, maybe a car, maybe they were in an accident, maybe they've gotten a DUI and they've got some incarceration that they're facing, if not just finishing up. The point being is that this is a person that is in pretty dire straits. And they are at this point fairly desperate to want to recover, and that's when you can really get a hold of them. And it has been shown time and again that there are people in this category that can and will recover and do go on to do great things. So there's also the other thing I think is that there is doctors and psychiatrists that are involved in this situation. So obviously, appeal to them and listen to what they have to say, because they obviously are the professionals here, and it's something that is probably worth noting and abiding by as you go about trying to help this person recover. Rob?
Yeah, so which takes me back to page 58. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunate. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest and get help. Okay, a lot of people come into the fellowship and their problems are more than alcohol. And do you know what? We recommend outside help. Remember, in this book, it says that there are many good doctors and psychiatrists out there to help us. Okay. Also on page 50, it talks about every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power, because the line right here is a promise. The power of God goes deep. Powerful line. Page 114, everybody. You may have the reverse situations on your hands. Perhaps you have a husband who is at large, but who should be committed. Some men cannot or will not get over alcoholism. When they become too dangerous, we think the kind thing is to lock them up. But of course, a good doctor should always be consulted. The wives and children of such men suffer horribly, but not more than the men themselves.
Yeah, this is a rather this is a darker part of alcoholism. This is the person that has withdrawn, is essentially, and I use this just hypothetically, living in a basement, largely in the dark, and is not open to any type of overtures of care, and has really given up on life itself. This is not necessarily a good thing. Doesn't mean that this person can't recover. We always hold out hope for everyone, and we've seen some of the people that have been in their darkest places have actually recovered. So it is possible. But this person is also becoming dangerous to themselves, and at that point, it's time for an intervention. So definitely continue to try whatever is possible, and but then again, this may be that they may need to go to a long-term stay in some type of a hospital setting in order to save their lives. Rob?
Yeah, I remember in the 1930s when they first started this program, they would bring people into their homes. You know, there's one case of Eddie Riley chasing Ann, Dr. Bob's wife, around the kitchen table with a butcher knife. Thank God we don't have to put up with that today. Now, this is somebody that Dr. Bob brought into his home. You know, we don't do that these days. But if you have a spouse that is violent when drunk, something has to be done. Okay. And they talked about earlier in the book where this gentleman he was a kind chap when he's sober, but when he's drunk, he's blackened the eyes of a couple of nurses. You know, Bill Dobson, fine chap when he's sober, but when he's drunk, he becomes very mean and aggressive, you know, punching at people. It's a danger to you or to the spouse. So something has to be done. Okay. So we're at the bottom of page 114, everybody. But sometimes you must start life anew. We know women who have done it. If such women adopt the spiritual way of life, the road will be smoother. If your husband is a drinker, you probably worry over whether other people are thinking. And you hate to meet your friends. You draw more and more into yourself, and you think everyone is talking about conditions at your home. You avoid the subject of drinking, even when with your own parents. You do not know what to tell the children. When your husband is bad, you become a trembling recluse, wishing the telephone had never been invented.
This is an extension of somebody that's pretty far gone in the alcoholism, that they're, as Rob had just described, probably somebody that is somewhat nice when they're sober, if they're sober. When they're not, they're rather mean and disruptive. And I think that what you find is that the family begins to withdraw as well, because they are inextricably tied to the alcoholic, but at the same time they're and because of that they've basically withdrawn from their friends and family. And it this just shows the all-encompassing effect that alcohol and alcoholism can have on the family at large, with regard to their well-being as well. So a lot of the withdrawing happens. The space and time between getting to see friends and family, it becomes a very lonely place, and that's a bad place to be. And you want to reach out for help, also for yourself as well. This again is a natural course. It's an unfortunate one, but it does happen where the family actually mimics what's going on with the alcoholic, and because of the embarrassment that they may be causing, or the problems that they that happen, they withdraw as well. Rob?
We find that most of this embarrassment is unnecessary. While you need not discuss your husband at length, you can quietly let your friends know the nature of his illness, but you must be on guard not to embarrass or harm your husband.
So this is a good approach. It's a tough one. Where do you draw the line? You can talk about the illness, or the disease, or what he's suffering or she is suffering from. No need to go into detail. It's kind of I know when I first stopped drinking, I realized that I had caused, problems in and amongst friends and family. I had said some things and done some things that were what I would consider as very embarrassing. They were inappropriate, and I had, I was sure that that's all anybody was thinking about. The fact is, they probably weren't just thinking about that. I found it very difficult in the beginning because I just wasn't used to this feeling of recovery and sobriety, and this confidence that I now have in order in talking about what's wrong or what had been wrong. I know that this is a difficult thing to do. You you kind of are at that point where you know that you can say something. People at this in today, we see alcoholism on TV. We see problems with it in other places, meaning that it's been, it's out in the open. I think it's much easier to talk about, and it's much more widely accepted. People know people that are suffering from alcoholism and have recovered, and there's some goodness there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that this is a difficult thing to actually start to do. It's something that I think helps to get you out of your cave, if you will. And I think that talking about it helps to heal as well as inform. So the you also don't want to say too much, because obviously it's really none of anybody else's business, really, other than the fact that they just at least understand what's happening, and that's about it. Rob?
Yeah, a couple things we have to remember here. Who wrote Two Wives? Bill Wilson wrote Two Wives. He is an alcoholic. Okay, and the other thing is that Al-Anon was not created at this point. And but there's a few things in here that just are beautiful Al-Anon things. You must be on guard not to embarrass or harm your husband. Here the husband is drunk as a skunk, or the spouse is drunk as a skunk, and is embarrassing you, but don't you embarrass him or her. It. So please take everything with a little grain of salt. Uh, you know, Nobody wants to embarrass anybody, but they're teaching, the spouse to detach a little bit. That, you know what, with love. So it's quite the chapter. And sometimes I think that it goes over the top in protecting the alcoholic person. You know, when you have carefully explained to such people that he is a sick person, you will have created a new atmosphere. Barriers which have sprung up between you and your friends will disappear with the growth of sympathetic understanding. You will no longer be self-conscious or feel that you must apologize as though your husband were a weak character. It may be anything but that. Your new courage, good nature, and lack of self-consciousness will do wonders for you socially.
Yeah, this is getting over that hump, that breaking down that barrier that you've built up around yourself as a protective kind of wall. And I will say this, that most people are going to be sympathetic just because of the day and age with regard to us talking about people drinking, the growing number, and I don't have any statistic to say so, but I just anecdotally it feels like that there's a growing number of people that are accepting a life without alcohol, and those that are stopping their drinking are finding that it's a very acceptable place to be, and socially it isn't quite as the pressure isn't quite as high, I believe. And maybe it's just because I'm getting older and the people I'm around are a lot more mature or whatever, but I don't feel any pressure in any circle I've been in the last few years. I haven't felt pressure to drink ever. And it's a good feeling. And I would just say that, talking about it, getting it out in the open is something that you get off of the weight off your shoulders. So that's a nice feeling to have, so that you can kind of get it out there and talk about it. The awareness that you create with regard to your friends and family is always good, because there's obviously going to be some support there, and that is a helpful thing. And then because of that, you are in a better place, and that is good psychologically. And you can then begin to start to branch out, reach out, and start connecting with your friends, start connecting with your family again. So all goodness here, but it is kind of one of those things. It's getting over that hump, which is the most difficult thing to do, and that is to know just how much to say, but to say it is a challenge. Once you've done that and you see that there is that acceptance, that empathetic kind of approach from your friends and family, the better. And it does give you confidence to begin to be more socially active and reconnect with friends and family. Rob?
Yeah, here's a promise. When you have carefully explained to such people that he is a sick person, you will have created a new atmosphere. It's a promise that they have here. You know, get on with your life. Go and do the things that you want to do. Enjoy life. As I say, Al-Anon, detach with love. You know, the same principle applies in dealing with the children. Unless they actually need protection from their father, it is best not to take sides in any argument he has with them while drinking. Use your energies to promote a better understanding all around. Then that terrible tension which grips the home of every problem drinker will be lessened.
Yeah, children are pretty resilient. I would say that depending on the age, there's certain ways that you approach it. You obviously talk to them at the level of what their maturity is. If they're very young children, you don't have to go into any detail. The older they are, the more they can accept and are in the know. So I think a big thing is not to lie to them. A good approach is just like I said, depending on their age, approaching them at that level, talking to them about their mother, father, whatever figure it is that is in their life, and talk about how to approach it, but also what's going on. And I would just say that it helps to talk about it, opening things up, listening to what they have to say, what questions they might have, answering them as to the best of your ability, and being very open about it. I think is the best approach. Closing off and not talking about it leaves them wondering, and that's never good because they feel closed off and rejected. Rob?
We're not that far until we get to the next chapter, which is the family afterwards. And the chapter afterwards talks about, father was incapacitated for so long that the family went and started doing things on their own. The mother and children would go do activity, do social engagement, and leave father at home. And one of the hard things is that when father or mother, whoever the alcoholic spouse is, um, you know, when they get sober and they start to rejoin the family in these activities, it takes some getting used to, because, they've been doing things on their own. Forget about the drunk. We leave them at home, let them be in their cups, let them sleep it off, whatever. And we go and do our thing with the children. So it takes some getting back into a routine of a family. Frequently you have felt obliged to tell your husband's employer and his friends that he was sick, when as a matter of fact he was tight. Avoid answering these inquiries as much as you can. Whenever possible, let your husband explain. Your desire to protect him should not cause you to lie to people when they have a right to know where he is and what he is doing. Discuss this with him when he is sober and in good spirits. Ask him what you should do if he places you in such a position again, but be careful not to be resentful about the last time he did so.
Now, talking to the employer. If the employer is calling asking where Leo is at, it's probably a good idea to just say that he's sick. He's not feeling well. You're not necessarily lying. I'd be careful about giving too much information because I'm not sure what the situation would be in how it would be perceived and what damage it might cause otherwise. But if you're in the position where you're actually talking to the spouses, your partner, husband, wife's, employer, it is a good idea to have that conversation with the alcoholic to find out how best to handle that situation, so that you're not, one, lying, but at the same time, I think you're not divulging too much. I think you've got to be careful. Having a right to know where somebody is at as an employer is absolute, but at the same time, having a right to know doesn't include all of the details. I mean, even in fact, now as a sober, recovered alcoholic, now I if I go on vacation, I don't tell my employer where I'm going. I just tell them I'm going to be gone for the next few days and I'm on vacation. It's really none of their business what I do on my free time, kind of thing. So if it's, let me talk about, I guess, company time, if somebody is recovering from a spree, then they're probably sick, and saying that they're sick is in the gray area, but it's not necessarily a lie. It just doesn't tell them everything, and I think that's there is still some stigma associated with alcoholics in the workplace. So I think it's something that you have to be careful with, because obviously an income, your livelihood is an important factor in keeping the family operating and together.
Yeah, especially in the late 30s, when this was going on. A lot of times the wife was not working. She was at home looking after the children, no matter how old or how grown the children were. You know, the man was the breadwinner. If he lost his job, he had no money coming in. So, scared to death that they're going to lose another job, for drinking. So, you do anything you can to keep them employed as best you can. But we all know that until we sink to the bottom, we get into that pit, we're not going to do anything to get better. There is another paralyzing fear. You may be afraid your husband will lose his position. You are thinking of the disgrace and hard times which will befall you and the children. This experience may come to you, or you may have already had it several times. Should it happen again, regard it in a different light. Maybe it will prove a blessing. It may convince your husband he wants to stop drinking forever. And now you know that he can stop if he will. Time after time, this apparent calamity has been a boon to us, for it opened up a path which led to the discovery of God.
Yeah, it's interesting about the things that you lose as an alcoholic, and one of those catalysts that are out there that motivate an alcoholic to finally seek recovery and sobriety is the loss of a job, the loss of income, and the ramifications or impact that has on their lives. And the lives of the family as well. So it is it sometimes is that jolt that is necessary in order to get somebody to say, all right, enough's enough. I've lost this much now. I don't want to lose any more. I've got to get back on track because I've got to be able to get myself into a position where I can start earning an income and supporting my family again somewhere down the road. So what do I need to do in order to get there? And I'm willing to do it. So that's kind of what they're explaining here. It's a tough place to be. We can't operate without any money, unfortunately, but that's where things have to. Sometimes that has to happen in order to get somebody jolted into a position to want to recover. Rob?
Yep. And I'm going to go to page 25 and read something that's right there. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcoming, which the process requires for successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others. We had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we have been living it. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. this person has sunk to the bottom and is now going to be looking for a solution. We have elsewhere remarked how much better life is when lived on a spiritual plane. If God can solve the age-old riddle of alcoholism, he can solve your problems too. We wise found that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, and all the things which go to make up the self-centered person, and we were not above selfishness or dishonesty. As our husbands began to apply spiritual principles in their lives, we began to see the desirability of doing so too.
So this is kind of changing gears a little bit. You've got somebody that is recovering now, has started down the spiritual path and is sober and starting to reap the benefits of that. And what we're basically saying here is that maybe and perhaps you as the partner or spouse could do the same and find that spiritual lifestyle actually can help solve other problems as well. Your problems, not necessarily alcohol problems, but other problems out there also. And so it's absolute that if your higher power can aid you in stopping the drink problem, then it also your higher power can also help you in other endeavors that you are faced with on a daily basis as well. Huh?
Yeah, the human conditions. We wise found that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, and all the things which go up to make the self-centered person. What is our main problem? We are self-centered alcoholics. We're only thinking about ourselves. Okay? What is the big thing about a spiritual experience? Is that we start to think about other people. We care about other people and what's going on in their lives. You know, we stop thinking solely of ourselves and what we can get out of life, what we can give to other people and life. You know, in God's world, you know, it's what would he have me do? Not what does Rob want today? Rob wants $1 million and a fancy car. No. What can I do for somebody else today? You know, it's a great way of living. It really is. It's made me so much happier. You know, I don't have to, you know, put the world on my shoulder.
Wow.
Okay. You know, somebody else has got that. That's above my pay grade. You know, I leave that up to the guy upstairs. At first, some of us did not believe we needed this help. We thought on the whole we were pretty good women, capable of being nicer if our husbands stopped drinking. But it was a silly idea that we were too good to need God. When we try to put spiritual principles to work in every department of our lives, when we do that, we find it solves our problems too. The ensuing lack of fear, worry, and hurt feelings is a wonderful thing. We urge you to try our program, for nothing will be so helpful to your husband as to radically change attitude towards him, which God will show you how to have. Go along with your husband if you possibly can.
Yeah, it is just goes without saying that, you know, two people supporting each other is much better than the singular person trying to do it all by themselves. And so if you are able to make that connection and it's urging you to do so, go along with the program. Just because you're not an alcoholic doesn't mean that you can't go through the steps, doesn't mean you can't, do the things that they say here. And doing so is very enlightening. And so what they're basically saying is that, really pick up the book, try it. If you are at all able to go along with it, you're going to find that you're going to benefit from it. And then not only that, but it's going to exponentially grow the success of the recovery of the alcoholic that you're with. So that's really the basis here of what it's trying to say. It is, I know that there are clergymen out there that suggest this book as just a nice way to live your life. There are people out there that actually pick this book up and actually live the principles and the steps that may never even have touched alcohol, but still a great way of living. So it's just a really, really strong suggestion to do so. The benefits are immense if you're able to do so. Rob?
Yeah, solve problems is mentioned quite a few times. On page 42, it's solve all my problems. Page 43 is solve their problem. 45 is solve your problems. 52 is solve our problems. Page 116 was solve your problems too. And 144 is solve his problem. You know, all this can be taken care of. You know, Leo just mentioned a lot of 12-step programs use the big book. Change words, a few words here and there, I guess, but you know, it's a different way of living, you know, and it's pushing aside, you know, selfishness and self-centeredness and thinking about our fellow man. What a great way to live. I wish more people could do it. I think the world would be a little bit better place for it. You know, I see incredible people on these Zoom meetings, you know, many I call friends. You know, why? Because we get to know each other a little bit. We've solved our problems. We care about each other. If you and your husband find a solution for the pressing problem of drink, you are, of course, going to be very happy. But all problems will not be solved at once. Seed has started to sprout in a new soil, but growth has only begun. In spite of your newfound happiness, there will be ups and downs. Many of your old problems will still be with you. This is as it should be.
Yeah, it doesn't, nothing's going to be perfect. One, two, it's still, we all suffer from the human condition. So we're going to find that there are going to be ups and downs. You're still going to be angry about things. You're going to be happy about things. You're going to be sad about things. You're still going to be presented with problems that you have to solve that are going to be difficult in some cases, easy in the other. It is just basically saying that, don't think that this is going to be rainbows and unicorns. It's not going to be perfect out there. You're still going to have to deal with things on a day-to-day basis that are challenging, and in doing so, this isn't going to be perfect. But I think that using the book, using the program, and the solution that it outlines in here is going to make things easier and better overall, as you kind of maneuver through life. So it's just basically a disclaimer here. It's not going to be, nothing's going to be perfect. Right?
No, life, people get sick. People lose jobs. Things happen in life. On page, right at the bottom of page 14 in Bill's story, I'm just going to read that for a second. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. Not everything's going to be roses. Life happens. Good things happen. Bad things happen. We have to be able to deal with it. Okay. And if we don't, okay, perfect and enlarge our spiritual life, okay, we are going to drink again. Our friend Bill from New Jersey, who comes on at the end of this meeting, always says that, it's growth and maintenance. Okay. You have a garden. Okay. You plant seeds. If you don't maintain that garden, get rid of the weeds, okay, what's going to happen? New growth will not take place. We're constantly trying to grow, but in order to grow, we have to maintain. We have to do maintenance. So please remember that, And how do we do that? Page 14 and 15. Okay, through hard work. Okay, the faith and sincerity of both you and your husband will be put to the test. These workouts should be regarded as part of your education, for thus you will be learning to live. You will make mistakes, but if you are in earnest, they will not drag you down. Instead, you will capitalize on them. A better way of life will emerge when they are overcome.
Yeah, again, it's just a continuation of this situation where you're going to have the ups and downs. You learn from your mistakes. That's kind of just an equation that is part of life. And that is, if you can learn from your mistakes and not make the same mistakes again and again, then you've benefited from those mistakes. You've learned, you've gotten better. And so the same thing is saying here is that if you work this together, you are a team, you have got a partner, that's strength in numbers, and in doing so, the idea of applying this program to life as a whole, you're going to find that things are, in fact, easier. And as they say here, a better way of life will emerge when they are overcome. And there you go. Rob?
And why will a better life emerge? It's because now we have spiritual tools that we can use when we make mistakes. And yes, we are going to make mistakes. We're going to make many mistakes. Okay? We are not perfect people. We make mistakes. So what do we have now? We have step 10 and we have step 11. Step 10, deal with it now. My friend Art always says step 10 is like a safety net. We make mistakes, and when do we fix it? Now. We deal with it now, okay? So that it doesn't become a resentment, so it doesn't become something bigger in our minds. Okay, if I do something to upset Ron, I say, Ron, I'm sorry, how can I make this better? I did not mean to upset you. I did not mean to hurt you. It was not my intention, but I know that I did. And for that, I am sorry, and it will never happen again. I deal with it. In where before I would just keep it to myself, and then I would roll it around in my head and say, Ron was being really mean to me. Ron, did this or he did that. He gave me a dirty look, so I said something to him. It's all Ron's, and then it just becomes a whole thing that it's Ron's fault. No, it's not. It's my fault. I take responsibility for my actions now where before I wouldn't. It's a whole new way of me dealing with life. Okay? I feel better because I have let it go. I have apologized. I've done what I need to do. I've made amends if I owe him money or I've done something. I deal with it now. Where before I would just sweep it under the carpet and it would become a totally different scenario. Okay, some of the snags you will encounter are irritation, hurt feelings, and resentments. Your husband will sometimes be unreasonable, and you will want to criticize. Start from a speck on the domestic horizon. Great thunderclouds of dispute may gather. These family dissensions are very dangerous, especially to your husband. Often you must carry the burden of avoiding them or keeping them under control. Never forget that resentment is a deadly hazard to an alcoholic. We do not mean that you have to agree with your husband whenever there is an honest difference of opinion. Just be careful not to disagree in a resentful or critical spirit.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. One is that things are going to happen that cause there to be fear and resentment, fear of this problem causing the alcoholic to threaten and or go back to drinking, and that's kind of what they're alluding to, is that these resentments can in fact have a negative impact on the progress that you're making and cause the alcoholic to go back to drink. At the same time, I think it's important to note here is that you're not supposed to just sweep things under the carpet. I think that, letting things fester is that speck that they talk about, and becoming great thunderclouds of dispute later. And I think that if you deal with it when it's a speck, it's a whole lot easier, and maybe you avoid the explosions, the blowups, and the strong negative feelings that come from arguments and disagreements. They are saying that you're going to have them, that you should have them. It's kind of healthy to have debate, but it is important that it is debate, not arguments, as best you can. We all suffer from the human condition, so we're going to find ourselves probably saying something that we regret. But the point they're trying to make is to try and minimize that, try to find a more positive common ground, if you will, approach to these disagreements and problems, so that they don't fester, so that they don't grow, and ultimately they don't create problems for the alcoholic or the family, and cause the alcoholic to go back to drinking. Because once you've done that, then you've got to kind of start back at square one again. And while there are a lot of things that you've got that has built this foundation, you've got to fix now the cracks that are in that foundation. As far as that goes, and that just takes some work. So nobody wants to do that.
I like that, Leo. Cracks in the foundation.
Yeah.
I like that. Now, I just want to go back to page 64 for a second. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stemmed all forms of spiritual disease, for we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten up mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. So if, we deal, okay, we have not only been mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. So we don't want any resentments, because what happens is it cuts us off from source or power. Then on page 67, okay, after the sick man prayer, or how to master resentments, we avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. I get into an argument with Leo. Okay? He digs his heels in, I dig my heels in. He yells louder, I yell louder. Nobody wins. We have the right to say, you know what, this is getting a little heated. Okay, let's take a break, and can we revisit this later on? It says this later on in the book. Okay? Arguing doesn't solve the problem. All it does is we dig our heels in, we yell louder, and I can't change my point of view because I've already dug my heels in. So I just say, Leo, can we revisit this in a little bit? Okay, I'm getting a little heated. And he'll say, yeah, not a problem. And then we can come back later on when neither one of us have the emotions, the heated emotions, and we can discuss it in a kind and careful way. So, you ready to bring in Mr. Bill?
I am, yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. Yeah, this chapter here, Two Wives, and the parts that we read here, what Bill's doing, Bill is trying to give the wife some instruction or some suggestions on how to help the alcoholic stay sober. That's what this is about. This whole book is about helping an alcoholic achieve sobriety. This is not about helping the wife or the spouse or the husband or anybody else get better. This is about helping the alcoholic get better. So when you read through this, it looks like he's favoring the alcoholic, and he is, of course he is. He's trying to help the alcoholic get better. This chapter was designed to buy time for the alcoholic. Cheerfully see him through more sprees. Go along with your husband if you possibly can. In other words, don't fight with the alcoholic over their drinking, because if you do, the alcoholic's going to use that as an excuse to drink more. He's trying to give some suggestions on how to help an alcoholic stay sober. I know it sounds like he's picking on the wife or whatever, but that's not what's going on here. Remember, this is 2 wives. It's not 4 wives. He's telling the wives what they should do so they can help the alcoholic get sober. That's the main purpose of this book, is to show other alcoholics how we recovered. That's what it says in the foreword to the first edition. The main purpose of this book is to help an alcoholic achieve sobriety. And that's what he's trying to do here by dealing with the other half of the alcoholic and telling them what they need to do so the alcoholic doesn't drink. I think we all know from our own experience, every time we were told we're not allowed to drink, we better not drink again, we use that as an excuse and we just go out and drink more. And Bill understood that because Bill was an alcoholic. And I'm sure he went through that with his wife. Lois probably screamed and yelled at him a half a dozen times, or maybe more. You can't drink. You better not drink again. If you don't stop, I'm going to beat you up with a frying pan or whatever. And what did Bill do? He just went out and drank more and more and more. And Bill Wilson understood that. So he's trying to buy time for the alcoholic, so the alcoholic will have time to get through the steps and have a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience. That stuff just doesn't happen overnight. For me, when I walked into my first meeting, I did not see thunder and lightning and a halo appear over my head and I floated out the window playing a harp. That didn't happen to me. It took me a long time for this stuff to sink in. And Bill understands that. It takes a long time. So he's saying you got to put up with the alcoholic for a while until they start to get better and until this program kicks in. And that's really what this is all about. And he gives all different examples here, different types of husbands, different types of drinkers, whatever. And he goes through it and he's trying to give the wife some idea on what to do, whether it's the wife or the husband or the friend or a family member. Anybody that's working with an alcoholic can use this. And you can even use parts of this chapter when you're sponsoring somebody. If you're sponsoring somebody and you think they were drinking the night before, you don't jump in their face and start screaming and yelling at them. That doesn't work with us. You're just like that guy Jim in chapter 3. They worked with him a half a dozen times because they understood that if you try to jump down an alcoholic's throat because they were drinking, that doesn't work with alcoholism. That might work with other things in life, but it doesn't work with alcoholism. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thanks so much, Bill. You're muted, Leo.
Sorry about that. Had
No
a dog
problem.
talking to me a while ago here. Let's go ahead and do the serenity prayer and then we'll close things out.
You got it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.